Welcome to MMA Dogs. My name is Hector. This is my dog Dan.
Hi.
And we are in Las Vegas, the home of the UFC and the mecca of MMA.
In our opinion, and we've talked about this before. What do you got, dog?
Yeah, we both agree on this. They go out there and finish a fight early in the first round, but don't get caught speeding. Don't get caught speeding on this fight.
They're against a guy who just got bit by a dog with rabies or something.
For me, it's do not bet.
And betting advice: do not bet. But it's gonna be one of those things, guys. I really feel it.
It's unanimous. MMA Dogs have spoken.
5-star, and that's gonna be a knockout. Just something to highlight the night.
MMADogs.com. MMADAWGS.com. Who's ready to make some money? I know we are. If you're ready to consistently profit over and over again, you've come to the right place. Welcome to MMA Dogs. My name is Dan, and welcome to the MMA Dog family. Tonight we're going to talk about UFC Fight Night 36 down in Jaragua do Sul, Brazil. First pick of the night, Erick Silva. He's going to go out there. He's going to beat Takenori Sato. He's just going to destroy the guy, and at very, very, very worst, he's going to win a unanimous decision. Next pick of the night, Ronaldo Souza. Now, we are very, very well aware that Francis Carmont has GSP in his corner down there in Brazil. But, GSP and Francis Carmont are completely different fighters. And I would say that Ronaldo Souza is going to go in there and he's going to finish this fight probably by submission. Francis Carmont has got himself into some bad situations against Carlos Famola, against Magnus Steenblad, and I think it's going to be too late for Francis Carmont down in Brazil trying to take on Ronaldo Souza. So he's the second pick of the night. Third pick of the night, Charles Oliveira against Andy Ogle. Andy Ogle has showed excellent submission defense in his fight with Cole Miller, but his chin is a little bit suspect. And Charles Oliveira coming off fight of the night with Frankie Edgar, in which he showed amazing heart in. You got to think that, hey, Charles Oliveira is going to go in there and put on an outstanding finish. You got to think if he's gonna finish, it's gonna be tougher for him to submit Andy Ogle. Even though Charles Oliveira is the master at submissions, Andy Ogle, his submission defense is just world class, and so we think that Charles Oliveira is going to get a stoppage by knockout or TKO. Probably earlier than late, because Andy Ogle seems to turn it on in the third round. And the final fourth pick of the night is going to be Albert Tumenov. This one pretty much comes down to his opponent, Eldemar Alcantara. He just gasses unbelievably, and just look for Albert Tumenov to go out there and get the finish. All four of those picks are going to be 4-star picks. There's no 3-star picks of the night. But let's just go ahead and talk about the rest of the card anyways. Lyoto Machida versus Gegard Mousasi looks very, very promising. A lot of people are high on Machida. A lot of people are high on Mousasi. But the Machida, our pick is going to be Machida. But the problem is with the betting side of it is, if Machida can't get the knockout, what happens in a decision? Yeah, he won against Phil Davis and he won against Rampage, but the judges gave him the loss, and split win over Dan Henderson, and the rest of his wins currently being by knockout. It's kind of really hard to say that if Gegard Mousasi doesn't get finished, that Lyoto Machida is going to get a decision in this one. So this is just the kind of fight that it's going to be really exciting to watch, but just can't lay any juice on it. Next one, Yuri Alcantara coming off of a huge loss, and Wilson Hayes. He's definitely underrated after his fight over Ivan Menjivar, and look for him to probably crank out a decision, and because Yuri has lost recently to Uriah Faber, and he lost to Hakran Diaz, and although those guys have done well, the guys that Yuri has beat, like Omigawa and I forgot who the other guy was recently, but they just haven't. They were pretty much arguably going to lose to Yuri, and Wilson Hayes definitely has a much better chance than people or than the odds makers give him credit for. So you're Alcantara, but do not bet because of the juice and the momentum that Wilson Hayes has for him. I can't even pronounce this next guy's name. Tuhugov was originally supposed to fight Thiago Tavares, and now he has a new opponent in Douglas Andrade, or Douglas Andrade, I think is how it's pronounced. But it's just kind of a short notice fight for both guys. Andrade being like 22-0. And then also being the Brazilian in Brazil, it's really hard to say. Tahugov was just going to win all day long, when there was really no prep time for him. Joe Proctor is another one we want to pick, but Marcello has been, Joe Proctor. He's we pick him because Marcello has been really inconsistent, no chin, he's been reckless, and Joe Proctor, but the fact that it's in Brazil, Joe Proctor could lose to a Brazilian. The Brazilians, they really show up. The crowd gets them going, and anything can happen. And Joe Proctor being the favorite in this one down in Brazil, it's just it's too much of a hit or miss. And then we also were looking at Nicholas Musoke, who recently submitted Alessio Sakara. Now he submitted one of the best Alessio Sakaras we ever saw, but at the same time, this Viscardi Andrade. His stand-up is really crisp and excellent. I think he had Bristol Marunde pretty much grabbing the referee before the referee even stopped it. So it's really a hit or miss picking Sweden to beat Brazil in Brazil, and so that way we can't. That's why we can't lay the juice on it. Francisco Trinaldo, man, this guy. And his losses against Peter Hallman and Gleison Tebow, both those fights, he not arguably was winning, but definitely nearly finished the fight in both those fights and lost. And he lost, or he beat C.J. Keith, and he beat I believe it was Mike Rio, but both those guys really haven't had much success in the UFC, and going up against this up and comer Jesse Ronson, who lost to a Brazilian, not in Brazil. It's really hard to say that, he's not going to go in there and actually show up in Brazil. So this is just one of those fights that, because of inconsistency with Ronaldo being too old and all that just can't lay the juice on him, especially at the minus odds. Next fight, Rodrigo Dam. Man, this guy we had such high hopes for, and it wasn't not so much because he's great, but because his opponent Ivan Batman George, he terrible UFC debut, terrible cardio, but fighting in a different division now, he looked excellent at the weigh-ins, and that's not to say Rodrigo Dam didn't look excellent. He didn't even look recognizable at the weigh-ins, but it's just one of those fights where it's just like either guy could win, both guys being from Brazil, probably going to go the distance, and I really think that either guy could win this one, and it's just probably stay away, sit back and just watch it, enjoy it. And in the last fight, Felipe Arantes over Maximo Blanco. Blanco we both had before the weigh-ins, and he missed weight on the first attempt. Finally made his weight, but Blanco is very violent and consistent, though. The disqualification loss over Akira Corisani, and Felipe Arantes has been a beast lately, but nearly got finished in his last fight. Nearly got finished in the Milton Vieira fight, and it would not surprise us that much at all if Maximo Blanco goes out there and knocks out Felipe Arantes. So that's why we can't lay the juice on Felipe Arantes, even though we're picking him. So let's go over the picks one more time. Erick Silva, Jacare Souza, Charles Oliveira, Albert Tumenov, and we're also going to want to do round robin parlay of twos. So we want to take all four guys and bet every combination of 2. So you, for instance, you would put Erick Silva with Charles Oliveira, Erick Silva with Takenori Sato, Erick Silva with Tumenov, and then basically every guy in the list with the other 3 separately. Because a lot of people are unfamiliar with parlays, and even round robins are still not as well known as they probably should be in the betting community. So we want to lay the juice down. Total of 14.04 units to win 7.38. If all 4 of those guys win. If one guy loses, that's gonna shoot 3 of those parlays. And if 2 guys loses, it can go down. It can go down from there. But if you combine them all, it comes down to 14.04 units bet, and the possibility to win 7.38 units. And then we're even going to lay the juice on we got 5 props. Now props are very, very tough to predict, and even tougher once you predict them to actually hit them. So that's why you kind of, when you're doing props, you kind of have to bet equally. You can't unlike our fighter ratings, we have to say, oh, we can do 4-star, 5-star, 3-star. We can rate them. With props, you pretty much can't rate them. You just have to pick them and bet them all equally, whatever the odds are. So we have Takenori Sato by submission at plus 165, and we got Charles Oliveira by knockout or TKO at plus 500. Erick Silva by decision at plus 515. Tumenov inside the distance, meaning he needs to knock out or submission, doesn't matter which one. And that one's going to be plus 124. And then we have Musoke, who we are laying the juice on the prop by knockout or TKO at plus 727. And we're going to lay a quarter unit on each of one of those props. So it's going to be 1.25 total props bet. And obviously the outcome is greater than that. All we need is the Silva by decision, the Musoke by knockout or TKO, or Oliveira by knockout TKO. Any one of those 3 come along, and basically it's going to cover the rest of the props if they lose. And that's not to say they will lose, but definitely when you go with prop bets, you want to make sure that you bet equally through them, because you'll wind up hitting the ones that you bet the least on, and not hitting the ones that you bet the most on. And so that's why it's very important. So that wraps it up, and we'll get right down to UFC Fight Night 36 in Jaragua do Sul, Brazil.
Nobody likes to lose, so be done letting that money burn its way through your pockets. Slow down, get ready. We are so confident that you will profit from our picks that if you don't, we will refund your money and give you the next card on us. In order to profit in the long run, it's important to be consistent with our picks. Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither was Vegas. MMADogs.com. Profit guaranteed.
MMA